In this video, I'll discuss whether the crypto markets are in a bear market or not. Recently, we've seen a substantial correction in the altcoin markets, leading many to wonder whether we are still going to have a bull market or not. I'll cover all the key points, and at the end, I'll share my expectations for the upcoming market trends and when we might see the altcoins booming. I hope to provide you with new insights on your crypto journey. Let's dive into the video. The overall interest in the crypto markets is at a cycle low because retail isn't here. Crypto altcoins are going down substantially as the markets have been correcting. And in the past few weeks, we've seen a 50% correction on most of the altcoins. If you look at examples, for instance, Chainlink and stuff, they are down 60% against Bitcoin in the last 5 months. And every step that they go down, the heavier the impact will be on the sentiment and also the retail interest in the markets. And when we look at the retail interest, we can see that the overall interest by looking at YouTube data is only 25 to 30% of what we saw in 2021. So retail is still not here. Retail is still primarily focused on perhaps meme coins or at this stage trading Nvidia, which is crossing all-time highs, becoming the most valuable company out there. And if we look at volumes in the crypto markets, we can also see that the retail volume is down a lot. The retail volume right now is close to 70% lower than what it was in 2021. That shows that retail isn't here, and retail is usually the category that's going to be buying into the crypto markets at a later stage in the cycle when you're probably relatively too late already, or where you have a very narrow window of making that actual return. The good part is that the institutions volume has increased substantially. And we also know that this cycle might be the institution already. So it's a little different than what we saw in the previous cycles. And when we talk about the previous cycles, then we are almost sure that most of the altcoins are not going to breach their previous Bitcoin all-time high. In 2021, only Dogecoin was breaking its all-time high against Bitcoin. In this cycle, since the FTX fiasco, 8 altcoins have been reaching their all-time high against Bitcoin, BNB, Injective, and more. However, most of the older altcoins are never going to break the all-time high of Bitcoin due to dilution or due to the fact that there are better competitors at this point. By that fact and the current weakness of the Bitcoin valuations, we can see that the Bitcoin dominance continues to rally and it's facing a crucial resistance, and it's currently approaching 58%. And that is also, getting into the stages of a funeral or graveyard of sentiments, which is currently the stage. Many altcoin investors are usually retail, and by the Bitcoin dominance, you can see that the altcoins are valued at a very low valuation. Now, the past months, we've seen a primarily Bitcoin-driven markets, as Bitcoin is currently consolidating around the all-time high, where you can see that since the actual listing of the ETF, altcoins have been suffering and Bitcoin has been rallying. And Bitcoin has been consolidating since March and altcoins continue to fall. This is very likely and very comparable to the previous cycles, where in 2020 we've seen the exact same before Bitcoin started to break the all-time high. And now it's the exact same question of when is Bitcoin going to continue breaking upwards, ending this correction, and start the upwards momentum where altcoins are going to surge. And that is overall in the data. You can see that there are already some signs of strength on the altcoins, but you can also see and find the reasoning of why we are still in a bear market if you look at the data. When we talk about Bitcoin driven markets, we can see that the markets have been reaching a new all-time high pre-halving. We've had the inflow of the ETF, the actual approval took place here in the middle of our screen. Then we had a correction because the expectations were super positive going into the ETF, but then the first initial inflow was relatively bad. Markets corrected, and from there we had a huge inflow in the Bitcoin ETF, resulting in this massive run that since March has been consolidating in a sideways pattern. But given the fact that Bitcoin has been breaching its all-time high, it's very likely to see that the total market capitalization has been consolidating. And yes, here we go. the total market capitalization is also around an all-time high, very likely to breach through it, in which Ethereum is also included, and that is why we are not yet breaking an all-time high here since 2021, but we're getting close to it. We've just had a pretty tight consolidation of 25% and are just in the middle of the next consolidative breakout here. So we are consolidating. The next test of the all-time high is going to lead to a new breakout for crypto, in which we get into the stage of the breakout that we witnessed here in July as well. So when we go back to 2020, we've had the actual inflow or the Bitcoin halving taking place in May. Since then, consolidation, and then we had the big breakout of the total market cap, resulting into a rally from 300 billion towards 3 trillion, which is basically a 10x rally from there, which I think is still possible to do in this cycle, that we're going to have a 10x. At this stage, we've just been seeing a 2.5x, but it's very comparable that once we break through this level of 2.6 trillion, we continue to go. Now, when we start looking at smaller levels, we can see very many similarities with previous cycles as well. What we can see here is that the total too, which is excluding Bitcoin, is down a lot from the all-time high. The all-time high is 1.7 trillion. Current valuation is 1 trillion, has seen a correction, is facing a crucial level. But to get there, we still need a 70% run, primarily due to the fact that Ethereum is currently not yet around an all-time high. Once we start looking at total tree, it's down even more. We are seeing an all-time high here at 1.1 trillion, where on the other hand, the current valuation is 597 billion, which means that we still have a 2x to go on the entire ecosystem outside of Bitcoin and ETH to get to the level of 2021. And yes, the sentiment is still down a lot, and the sentiment is down because of this chart. It is the others against Bitcoin chart, which has also been seeing a massive correction in the end stages of 2020, but has been witnessing a massive rally here, has been correcting since this point that we have, and from there we can see that we've had a massive wick this week, resulting in potentially the bottom on the altcoins, which means that the bear market has been lasting since January 2022 for more than 2.5 years at this point. And we're close towards the end, because this actual level here, that is the Bitcoin ETF listing, and since then altcoins have been suffering. But this week is signaling that we're close towards a reversal. But the fact that the altcoins have such a low valuation against Bitcoin is the result that we're currently having so less inflow of retail interest, and also the sentiment being so bad. Here are another examples. Altcoins were in a bull cycle. They have been running up massively here in the first months of this entire bull cycle, since October towards January, the Bitcoin ETF listing. They have been running. Optimism, for instance, more than doubled in the 2 months, and since then we have been getting crushed, in which we can see that we are having a correction of 75% in the last 6 months, and now we're getting to a very likely chance of having an actual bottom. Where also Injective has been doing the exact same. Injective has been seeing a massive run until December of 2023 and the listing of Bitcoin. We've witnessed a multi-month upwards run for Injective, and now we are also seeing a 75% or 70% correction on Injective here. Now, I think it's going to be changing relatively soon, and the reasoning for that is the fact that we are having the Ethereum Bitcoin chart changing its trend. So it has been going down for 2.5 years already. We are flipping support on a crucial level through which the trend is, for the first time since this entire period, going to correct. However, what we need to do is we need to break through the 0.6 Bitcoin level. And I think that the chances of having that is really soon, given the fact that the Ethereum Bitcoin ETF is likely going to be trading on the 2nd of July, as one of the Bloomberg analysts has been saying that. And the second thing is that the interest by, for instance, Pantera Capital is currently 100 million in the Ethereum ETF, where they also invested 200 million in the Bitcoin ETF. And that brings me towards the topic that if you look at the current case of the market, and if you look at the current valuations of the markets, at this stage we are on the edge of having that rotation. As you can see, the rotation is around the corner, where with this rotation Ethereum is starting to go really well, and Ethereum starts to do well based on the Ethereum ETF. If you look at the Bitcoin ETF, the expectations were super high, but the first week was kind of low in terms of volume and the markets corrected. With the Ethereum ETF, the expectations are terrible, and from that perspective, we are probably underestimating and undervaluing the entire event, which is going to happen in 2 weeks from now. On a technical standpoint, Ethereum against Bitcoin is already bouncing up. It's already up more than 20% since its low, and its low was the actual approval of the 19B4 file. So I think answering the question of whether or not altcoins are continuing their bear market or not, I think we are closer to finalizing this entire bear market, and I think we are closer to the start of the bull cycle than we've ever been in the past few years. And I think that once Bitcoin or Ethereum breaks 0.06, that is when we start to see a lot of strength. Another example that we can see here is that if Bitcoin does well, Ethereum starts to do well, which is currently, and then the majors continue to follow, and the majors are starting to wake up substantially, and Chainlink has been seeing a very strong weekly candle where it's likely reversing its trend. This is also happening periodically. So in 2022, first 6 months were bad, bottom in May, 6 months of upwards momentum, then 6 months of downwards momentum, bottoming in June, and now we've got the exact same as since then, upwards momentum for another big rally, 6 months of downwards momentum since January, and currently finding itself into bottom, where in the previous years the altcoins have been doing 150% upwards momentum in those accumulation or bear market years. Now we are in a bull market year, where I think that in this bull market year, in the second half of this year, Chainlink might do better than that, and then the 150% that we have been doing in the previous years. So I think that at this stage the bear market might continue for 2 to 3 more weeks, but I think that we're closer than ever to the end and to the start of this bull cycle. Subscribe beneath. See you next time. Ciao.